Merry Christmas! Today we are continuing on with my favourites series, wrapping up the year, talking about the things that I loved, and today's category is favourite series. So, here's some stats we're going to put up on the screen. I read a total of 11 series in 2020, consisting of 3 fantasy, 3 dystopian, 2 sci-fi, 2 contemporary, and 1 paranormal. So, I have chosen a top 6. The reason why I've done this is because I want to be able to spend time talking about them rather than just going boom, boom, boom. Yeah, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want to talk in detail about these series. Coming in at number 6, we have the Vampire Academy series. This is a YA paranormal series written by Rochelle Mead. Let's go through my ratings for these books because it was a roller coaster ride and a half to get through. Book 1, 3 stars. Book 2, 3 stars. Book 3, 5 stars. Book 4, 3 stars, but it could have been 2. Book 5, 5 stars, and book 6, an overwhelming 5 stars. So as you can tell, this series has been quite the roller coaster ride for me. Not every single book was amazing. In fact, the beginning of this book was not easy for me to get through, and I'm not commenting on writing style or anything like that. It's just that I found with both books 1 and 2 that they were kind of meandering for the first 3 quarters, and then they leave off with an amazing climax and also cliffhanger that enticed me to keep going. So book 1 enticed me to pick up book 2, and the end of book 2 enticed me to pick up book 3. Had Rochelle Mead left off either of these books without those climaxes, I probably would not want to continue on any further, so that's what made it a bit of a tough journey. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a premise of book 1 so that you have a rough idea of where this series is headed, and that may give you an idea of whether or not you want to pick up this book series for yourself. So book 1 revolves around a dumpier by the name of Rose Hathaway. Now, dumpiers in this world are half human, half vampires. Rose has a best friend whose name is Vasilisa Dragomir. She calls her Lissa. Lissa is a Moroi, which is the name that they give pureblood vampires, and all pureblood vampires are part of separate royal lineages. There are many different royal families throughout this world, but there's a definite difference between the class system of the Dumpiers and the Moroi. The Dumpiers are treated as those who are there to protect the Moroi, and the Moroi are put up on a pedestal every single chance that they can be. Our protagonist, Rose Hathaway, is already enrolled in the Vampire Academy school, where she is being trained to become a guardian to serve a Moroi. She wants to serve her best friend Vasilisa. Meanwhile, Vasilisa, as a Moroi, gets a much more lenient education. She gets to study nice, fine things that she wants to do, and you kind of get this feeling that the Moroi classrooms and atmosphere is a lot more upgraded compared to the dumpier experience. But we end up going through this amazing ride because right at the beginning of the book, Rose and Vasilisa are not actually at the academy. They are in a home, and we come to find out very early on that they've actually run away from the academy. We find out that, without saying too much, we find out that the reason that they ran away is because Vasilisa has come into a magical ability which really surprised her and Rose, and they don't know what to do. And we go on this really amazing journey from starting in book 1 all the way through to book 6. Now, as I was saying earlier, it was a roller coaster ride for me, especially with books 1 and book 2. But with book 3, Rochelle Mead really hit her stride, and I enjoyed this book from the start to the end. So I really started feeling very comfortable with this world, with this series and world, only to have the rug pulled out from under me with book 4. Rochelle Mead hits her stride in book 3 and bounces back really well with book 5, but it's the book that's in between the two. Oh my gosh. Rose needs to go on a quest in order to accomplish something, and she starts off really strongly, and then, maybe about a sixth of the way through, she gets distracted by something else, which makes sense to begin with, but by 3/4 of the way through the book, she's still being distracted by that same thing. And then one day she wakes up and says, "Oh yeah, I had a quest that I was doing. I mean, Rose, time to move. Rose, seriously, Rose, why are you still there?" The ending to this book, again, really, really good and better, much better conclusion than book 1 and 2, but it really set us up for book number 5. She needs to achieve something, and because she needs to achieve that thing, there is something else that comes about that she also needs to achieve. And I got about 1/4 of the way through book 5 and thought, oh, there's only one book left. I get exactly how it's going to wrap up. We're going to do the first thing in book 5 and the second thing in book 6. But nay, sir, Rochelle Mead came back to hitting her strides because she dealt with both things in book 5 and kind of wrapped things up. The way that it ended set us up for something in this book that really made this an exciting conclusion to this series. I had a blast ending this series, so much so that I actually picked up Bloodlines, which is book 1 in the next series by Rochelle Mead, and this is also a companion series to this series. Coming in at number 4 is the Harry Potter series. Okay, so this is a series that I read pretty much from the moment the first book came out. I became obsessed with this series very, very quickly. I love the characters, love the magic system, love everything about it. Earlier this year, beginning in May to celebrate my birthday, I started a reread of the entire series. However, this time, for the first time, I read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. So now I've read everything Harry Potter. So let's go through my star ratings because they very much reflect how I feel about this wonderful series. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, book 1, 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, book 2, 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, book 3, 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, book 4, 5 stars. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, 5 stars. Interesting fact about this book, I was recently looking at my review and I actually called it Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire a couple of times, so I apologise for past Mr. Francy there. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, 4 stars. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 5 stars. And Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, 4 stars. This series stands the test of time. This series was originally released in 1997, which means that it is 13 years old this year. And yet, 13 years later, this series has gone from, back then, a fantasy series to now, in my view, a classic series that has stood the test of time and I think will stand the test of time for many, not only years, but decades to come. So the basic premise of book 1, in case you have not read it, is that we are following a boy named Harry Potter whose parents were murdered, and so Harry is delivered to the doorstep of his only other living relatives, which is the charming couple of Ms. Petunia and Mrs. Petunia and Mr. Vernon Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive. And it's funny, this book actually opens up with the line, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive we're proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. And that is very much a depiction of Mr. and Mrs. Dursley and Harry Potter being delivered to their doorstep, unlike most family members in this situation who would be very accepting of the situation and say, oh, of course, we'll take him in and we'll raise him as our own. We're very much raising Harry, letting him know as much as they could that he has been nothing but a nuisance since he arrived on their doorstep. They never wanted him. Vernon has a sister, Harry's aunt. Well, now that he lives with the Dursleys, his aunt, and Aunt Marge. And Aunt Marge even says, if you were on my doorstep, the first thing I would do is send you straight off to an orphanage. No one in the Dursley family has any sort of love for Harry at all, and due to circumstances completely beyond his control, the death of his parents, he is now being raised with these people who hate him. There's no other way to put it. And it's a really rough beginning. But I also feel that children, the mind of a child, this is a middle grade book. It starts off as middle grade for the first 3 books and then becomes young adult from book 4 onwards. And middle grade age children, when they're growing up with their parents, they have a different view of the world than their parents. And, you know, even a parent saying no once or twice can be seen as the most horrible thing in the world. So to have a boy that we are following in this world who is being mistreated, there are lots of children who at that time will have been told no too many times that can relate to Harry Potter. So the beautiful thing about all of this, though, is that one day Harry receives a letter, and Harry has never received mail because the Dursleys, not only Vernon and Petunia, but they have a son, Harry's cousin Dudley, who is treated like the most spoiled child in the world. To give you an example of this, one day on Dudley's birthday, he comes out into the living area to find that there are a whole ton of presents in the room, and he says to his father, how many are there? Which I was shocked when I first read this, because for me, if I received 1 or 2 presents on my birthday, I was so happy that I did. But his first question is, how many are there? And his father says 36. I counted them myself. And Dudley says 36, but last year I got 37. If that's not bad enough. His mother then turns around and says, it's okay, Dudley, don't worry, because see, what we're going to do is after this, we're going to go out and buy you 2 new presents. I mean, seriously, he is the most spoiled child. And yet Harry Potter is so neglected and put down and treated like a slave. One day, as I said, Harry receives a letter, and as he's going to open it, his uncle notices something on the back of the letter that Harry doesn't notice, and he snatches the letter away from Harry. And we spend a number of chapters with letters continuing to come to the house for Harry, looking exactly the same as the original one, but Vernon Dursley keeps intercepting them and either ripping them up or burning them in the fire or something like that, because he doesn't want Harry to read his letter. And poor Harry, who, by the way, if you want to talk even more neglect of Harry, he lives in the cupboard under the stairs that is gathering dust and has spiders in it because they can't. There are at least 3 bedrooms in the home, at least that we know of, but no, Dudley needs a game room for all his toys, so Harry couldn't possibly sleep in there. It is horrible. Eventually, really upset by the pestering amount of letters that Harry keeps being sent, Vernon Dursley packs up the family and takes them away to a deserted island, where on the night of Harry's 11th birthday, at exactly the moment he turns 11, there is a thunderous knock at the door, and then the door is broken down by a massive giant, who we find out is named Hagrid. Hagrid comes into where they're staying on the island and says, reveals something to Harry that Harry never knew, which is, have you ever felt different? Have you ever felt like you certain things would happen when you got mad, and Harry would think, well, yes, and yes. And Hagrid says, well, that's because you are different, Harry. You're a wizard. And of course, Harry says, no, I'm not a wizard, but eventually comes to find out that yes, he is. His parents, Lily and James Potter, were two of the most powerful witch and wizards in the world. And Harry was also born a wizard because of that line. So he ends up being taken away to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to learn everything, and oh my goodness, what a difference it makes. He makes two of the most amazing friends in Ronald Weasley and Hermione Granger, and they show Harry the love that he never received from Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley. And Harry even goes on to meet Ron's family because he goes to stay with them sometimes in the holidays to get away from the Dursleys, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley take him in as one of their own pretty much right from the off. Mrs. Weasley kind of, in her own way, adopts Harry as another son. She has 7 children of her own anyway, but she adopts Harry as another one of her sons, and she just shows him a lot of love and warmth and kindness. This is a fantasy series, not a contemporary, but the warmth that you get from this book, especially after everything Harry has gone through, is something that adds to the nostalgia that I have, at least for book 1. Then on top of that, we have a soft magic system. For those of you who don't know, soft magic systems versus hard magic systems. A soft magic system is where you have a magic system that you don't know the bounds or limitations to. A hard magic system is the exact opposite. You know the full extent of everything. How to access it, what the limitations are, what you can do, what you can't do, all that sort of stuff. You know everything about it. That's a hard magic system. When you don't know everything about the magic system, it's soft. This is a soft magic system. While we know a number of different things about the magic system, we do not in any way, shape or form know everything. An amazing fantasy turned now classic series. I will leave that there and let you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday for now, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and Merry Christmas!